Hi everyone, and welcome back. In this video we're going to go over the MQTT settings that we need to do within WinLadder. So let's get started. First, let me get out of your way here and let's open up WinLadder. Alright, so I've got, basically this is a new program. This is just a blank slate within WinLadder. First, let's go to Module Configuration, this Module Configuration tab here. And in my office, I've got a 32IO FC6A Plus connected, couple of IO cartridges, and everything is connected over USB. So I'm good to go from the connection standpoint. I've got USB selected. If you don't, you can always click on that down here in the bottom left. That'll bring up your communication settings. So if you are communicating over Ethernet, then you can set that up as well. In my case, I'm talking over USB, so I'm good. All right. Now, we could go in and configure the PLC and drag in the I/O cards and all that. But if you're connected to it, one of the easiest ways to do it is just to click on this Read Module Configuration button. And what that'll do is, since my model setup differs, it won't do anything. I need to make sure I've got the right PLC selected. So I can go down here in the bottom left-hand corner and change that from FC6A D16 to what I have is an FC6A D32. It's the 32IO FC6A Plus. So let me change it for that. And now, if I go into the Module Configuration tab, click Read Module Configuration, that's going to go ahead and pull in my setup. And basically what I've got, again, it's the 32IO PLC. On the top here, I've got an analog I/O cartridge. And let me configure that real quick. I've got that very first channel here. What I've got is a Type K thermocouple. And let's set that up to read Fahrenheit data. So it'll read Fahrenheit data from -328 to +2372. And it'll store that in data register D8170. That's really all I'm using right now on the PLC. I do have another cartridge down there, but I don't have that really doing anything yet. So we can just work with this. And what we'll end up doing is we'll be sending our temperature data over MQTT to Amazon Web Services. All right. So, but just remember that the temperature data is in D8170. Great. Now let's click on the configuration tab up here. Let's go over to Ethernet port 1. Ethernet port 1 on the PLC is where we have MQTT supported. The first thing I'm going to do is in here where it shows the IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway, I'm going to set that up so it is on my network and using my router to get out to the outside world. So I'll enter the IP address that I want for the PLC. And I'll enter the default gateway, which is the IP address of my router. I'll go ahead and enter a couple of DNS servers. I'll use, these I believe are Google's. They're free to use. Anyone can use them. It's 8888 and 8844. Okay. All right. Let me scroll all the way down to the bottom. And this is where we set up our MQTT settings. This is where we configure it. So if you click the Configure button, that'll come into our MQTT settings dialog box. We've got three menu items here: the settings, publish, and subscribe. In this video, we're just going to go over the settings to get everything configured and set up. In later videos, we'll go in and show how to publish data and subscribe to data. But for now, we're just going to go through these MQTT settings. So we want to enable MQTT, turn this checkbox on. Okay, now down below here for our broker, you'll see we can enter either a host name or an IP address. As I mentioned in an earlier video, your MQTT broker can be local, so it can be running on a computer in your office, in your factory, what have you. In that case, you may just want to specify the IP address of the computer that it's running on. Okay. In our case, we're going to be connecting to AWS IoT Core, and they gave us a host name, an endpoint, if you remember from the last video. So that's what we need to enter here in the host name is that endpoint that we got from AWS. And if you remember, we copied that into Notepad so we could easily copy it out of there and paste it into WinLadder. Okay. So again, if we're doing a cloud server, you'll have a host name. And if you're doing a local MQTT broker, you'll have an IP address of the local PC where your MQTT broker is running. The next thing that we need to do is enter the port number. In this case, since we're doing secure communications, the secure port for MQTT is 8883. If you're doing unsecure communications, then it's 1883. So we just need to go in here and change this to 8883. For our Keep Alive, what this is, it's a period of time that once the FC6A Plus is connected as an MQTT client to our MQTT broker, it will send out basically a little ping, just a signal that says, hey, I'm still here, just so it remains connected. The default setting for that is once every 60 seconds, once a minute. Again, you can adjust that if you want. Okay. For client ID, you can come in here and type something specific if you want, or you can generate a random ID. Either way. This is just so that each device that's connecting to the broker has a unique address, a unique ID. That's all that's for. So again, you can come in here and type in something, or you can hit generate random ID to generate a random client ID for yourself. Okay. Now, in this situation, we are using a secure connection. Again, I'm using port 8883. And if you remember in the last video, we created a root certificate, client certificate, private keys, those things that we downloaded. Now we need to actually import those into WinLadder. So I want to turn on this Use Secure Connection, SSL/TLS checkbox, and then I want to go and import those different certificates. Okay, so let's click on Root Certificate and Import. And let's see, it's in my Downloads folder. Hang on, it's Quick Access, Downloads. There we go. And this was the root certificate. So I want the root CA PEM file here. Okay. For client certificate, click on Import. And our client certificate, let me make this a little bigger for you to see it, is this one that ends in certificate.pem. Okay. So we'll import that one. And the private key, let's click on Import. And here is the private key. It ends in private.pem.key. So we want to import that one. Okay. So now we've got all the certificates imported into WinLadder. And again, these are the ones that we generated in AWS IoT Core. It's what allows for secure communications between the thing, the device, and AWS IoT. All right, let's scroll down just a little. Now, here we need to enter a couple of things for these devices. One is our connection control. This is what we're going to turn on in order to enable the FC6A Plus to attempt to connect to the MQTT broker. And in here, I'll just type in maybe M0, just an internal relay within the PLC. For connection status, I'll specify a data register, D0. And you can see in this case, it actually uses two data registers, D0 and D1. Okay. So my connection control is internal relay M0. My connection status is data register D0. That's all there is as far as the setup for the MQTT settings. In the next video, what we'll do is we will write just a little bit of code to get that temperature data and get it into a floating point format. And then we'll go over how to actually publish that data to AWS IoT Core. So thank you again for joining, and we hope to see you on the next video.